Absolutely, James. All right, David, you should be able to unmute yourself.
There it is. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Good to see you. I was wondering why it was so quiet. Because you just muted everybody, so we couldn't talk. Good evening, John. Hi, Nan. Michelle, how are you?
We're good.
Eric Oxford's with us tonight. Lots of people are on board. James, are you out at the lighthouse or where are you? James Maroney. Are you on Waldron Street or where are you? Oh, he probably can't unmute himself.
Sarah Fox, you should be able to unmute yourself, correct?
I am now. I was not when I put the note up.
Okay.
Sarah Gold, I think I'm going to try to zoom in from another device. This one keeps cutting in and out. So if you see me come in under one of my kids' names, can you just, I'll switch the name, but can you unmute me?
Absolutely. Sarah, you should still be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm coming on as Grace right now, I
Okay.
think.
Okay, we still got a few people trickling in, but I will call the meeting to order at 7:06 p.m. Does anybody have any commendations? Go ahead, Sarah.
I just wanted to thank all of our staff, the administration, the students, if not the teachers, and the students for making it through the first week. The positive energy I saw, and even when things didn't work, there was patience and grace shown, and for that I'm just wanted to recognize everyone.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I've got to second that. It's been, not without its bumps, but I think overall it's been a great start. And so it just is really a testament to everybody coming together and working to make it as the best start we could have. So thank you.
I will third that.
I'll fourth it.
I think it sounds like the committee is in agreement. Anybody else? All right, then that will move us along to our student representative, Dan Howells. Dan, I think you should be able to unmute yourself. I think I changed the setting correctly.
I think.
Yep, we can hear you. Welcome, Dan. Welcome to another school year with us.
Yes, I'm very excited.
We're glad to have you back.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we are, as we were saying, just finishing up our first week of school. It's crazy to say that, but I'm really glad that we got to this point. So to sum up the first week at the high school, on Monday we had a full school meeting with everyone, which was actually like very, it was crazy to look at because we had, the same pages, about as many people per page, but like 30 pages, hundreds of kids. So that was really cool. And then we split up into meetings by grade after that. Then on Tuesday, we went through all 8 of our class blocks for 20 minutes each to get acquainted with our teachers. And then yesterday and today, we split up our 8 blocks into 2 days. So we had 4 classes yesterday for 50 minutes each, full blocks, and then 4 classes today for 50 minutes each. And then tomorrow we are going to have the same schedule from Tuesday, where we'll have every class for 20 minutes as a check-in day. So if I had to pick one word to describe the last week of school that I think all students would agree with, I think it would have to be weird. Because I think it's fair because, a year ago, no one could have possibly imagined the position that we are in. But that being said, I think it's important to recognize all the work that teachers have put into getting this year ready. It is clear to me that all teachers have worked extensively to make sure that their virtual classes run smoothly and that we will also be safe to return once hybrid school begins. So every day has run more smoothly than the last this week. And it seems to me that students are, really settling into the schedule and their, work environment at home. So moving forward, I understand that many after-school activities are working out their return plan And I also understand that many sports will be returning, but with revised rules. But students are definitely excited to get back to those activities, even if they have to change the rules a bit to make them safe for everyone. And I don't have much else to report regarding the future, as we all know it's almost impossible to know what the situation will be in even as soon as in a month. But I, of course, will let you know as things unfold and keep you up to date. But it's going on now.
Thanks so much, Dan. It's great to hear. Yeah, David, did you want to say something?
Yeah, hi Dan, welcome back. Could you talk a little bit about, was there during the week, I understood some book pickups and some different things going on at the high school for the students?
Yes, so on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we've had, I'm not sure, maybe tomorrow, but we've had pickups at the high school for textbooks and other materials that students probably wouldn't have at home. So I know like some of the art classes are giving art supplies to students and things like that. So they split it up by last name. So depending, that would say when you go to the school.
Right.
So they had actually the path that goes back to like the tennis courts opened up for cars to go down. And then we drove around the back of the school, picked up our textbooks, and then headed back out around the other way. So it went very smoothly. Yeah, we were able to get all of our things.
Great. And I think the boosters were doing some special t-shirts for.
Yeah, they had
Right.
teachers out giving out t-shirts with a magician with a mask on the back.
Yeah, that's great. I saw that on Twitter from Principal Bauer. So that's really cool. And thanks to the boosters for doing that as well. Yep.
Great. Well, great update, Dan. Again, good to have you back. We'll look forward to hearing more as the year moves on. And I think our next meeting is October 1st, so right before the hybrid starts. So we'll see where remote's out at that point and push through into in-person.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
All right, next is public comment. If anybody wants to make public comment, please use the raise your hand function, and I will call on you.
There's the raise hand function.
Sarah, I'm
Yeah.
trying to take notes as we go, just to kind of try to help to get ahead of the minutes thing. So if people can just make sure to note their address, if they could do it in the notes section, that would be helpful. But if not, if they can note their address as well.
All right. So if you want to put your name in the chat function with your address, that would be helpful. John Whipple, I think I see that you want to make a public comment, so I will allow you to go ahead and start speaking.
Thank you. I'm sorry I can't find the raise hand function.
No worries.
Chat disabled, it tells me. But anyway, John Whipple, 106 Atlantic Avenue. And I'm here on behalf of the Marblehead Ministerial Association. We had a meeting earlier this month, and the racial justice team invited us, among others, to make a statement about the recent acts of hatred and bigotry. And Rabbi Meyer and I were tasked with drafting a statement, which goes as follows. In 1981, the Marblehead Ministerial Association responded to acts of anti-Semitism by adopting our interfaith covenant. In it, we quoted scripture and the US Constitution. And we began by affirming our common faith in the one God. This is the one who created all people equal and endowed us with unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as stated in our Declaration of Independence. As leaders and representatives of Marblehead's communities of faith, we proclaim that our Creator creates every individual as an act of love. That love for us is universal and unconditional. As beloved creatures of the one Creator of all, we are called to reflect the divine love to all our fellow human beings. This leaves no room for hatred or bigotry toward any person or group. For this reason, the second scripture verse we quote in our covenant is, "You shall love your neighbor as yourself," regardless of ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, or any other basis. Therefore, in solidarity with many other organizations and individuals, we condemn recent acts of racism, anti-Semitism, and homophobia here in Marblehead as well as elsewhere. We call upon all our congregants and all people to oppose bigotry and hatred of any form, and to do whatever is within our power to build an inclusive society of justice, peace, respect, and love. That's the statement. I'll just add that one reason we wanted to share it with the school committee and the superintendent is that we believe, and we hope you believe as well, that schools have an important role to play in developing that community of hatred, of justice, peace, respect, and love, to make Marblehead truly no place for hate. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Would you mind sharing that statement if you can with our chairman, Sarah, and pass it along so we can include it in our minutes? I think that would be beneficial for everybody to have that.
Yes, as a matter of fact, before I realized that this was going to be a Zoom meeting, I had made copies for every member of the committee and for Dr. Bucky, so I can drop those off at the school administrative offices.
Wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else who would like to make public comment? Either raise your hand, or if that function is not in fact working, I believe I have the chat on correctly so that it will pop up to me that your name and address. I'll wait for just a moment. All right, I'm not seeing anyone. So we will move forward to the minutes. I know we've got a few sets that we were hoping to get on tonight, but I think only one of them ended up making it into our Dropbox, which is June 4th. Does anybody have any additional pieces or corrections to make on June 4th? And I'll just take a moment to just note that we are working really hard to get these minutes up. There's obviously a lot going on in the district at this point, and that after June 4th was the only meeting that was not posted on the YouTube that is also not posted as minutes on our website. So on the YouTube station, if you search on YouTube, Marblehead School Committee, you can find every recorded meeting that is not also in our minutes. So basically from June 4th forward, and I think there's some older ones from May in there that have since been passed, but are up on that site. All right, anything about the 4th? Okay, then I will ask for a motion to approve the minutes from June 4th, 2020.
So moved.
Megan moved.
Second.
David second. All right, I'll roll call vote. Sarah Gold, yes. Megan Taylor.
Yes.
Sarah Fox.
Yes.
David Harris.
Yes.
And Emily Barron.
Yes.
All right, let's pass 5-0. Thanks, guys. Hopefully we'll have the rest of June and then also some of July for our next meeting. John, that leads us on to the superintendent report, and you've got an opening day update.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. The opening day, by all accounts, was very successful. I think I would echo our student representatives' insight that who would have thought that the opening of school would include things like drive-through textbook pickup. But I think one of the things that affirmed for me the approach that we took to opening this year as solid was an email from a parent who was initially opposed to the idea of a remote opening and didn't understand why we weren't immediately going into the cohort. And I think as we watch the evening news and see schools that are pivoting, or school districts at the last minute that were intending to go back in hybrid and conditions in the community changed, or young people had celebrations that led to principals or superintendents having to make last minute decisions and families scrambling, thinking that they were had a schedule prepared and then that was turned on its ear. Really, the value of us starting with the 3 weeks remote resonated. And so that was good for me as the superintendent and good for the reopening committees and everyone that really did all of that work and weathered some feedback that people weren't sure that we had made solid decisions about reopening. And it has been also very nice to get emails from families recognizing that remote learning is indeed different by most accounts, that children from all grade levels, from first grade to high school, are seeing a difference in remote learning and the expectations and the enjoyment. I would just say some questions have come to me about rigor in remote learning at some grade levels or in some instances. And I will say part of the educational experience at the beginning of the year is building community and getting to know your students and to develop relationships and routines. And I can remember as a high school principal urging teachers not to just jump in to content on day one. And certainly with our advanced placement teachers at the high school level, they are very much eager to jump into AP chemistry and AP US history and art history and all of those things. But in good classrooms, in safe and inclusive schools, teachers really spend that first week or those first couple of days building community in the classroom and getting to know students. And so if, as you're listening to your remote learner talk about their summer vacation or what scares them or their hopes and dreams for the year, and you're thinking, what is going on? Why are we not talking about foundations or Go Math? Or why aren't they doing the quadratic, why aren't they doing quadratic equations? There is purpose behind that. And I realize that time is shortened this year and there is an increased anxiety for being able to get the content. But I do appreciate that teachers are being mindful that in a remote setting, it's tricky getting to know people. In a classroom, you can read some body language, you can see facial expressions more readily, but in Zoom, many of us, it's like our first year teaching again. And I just want to compliment our teachers that they are doing such amazing work. And those 10 days that we organized before we started remote learning, hats off to Assistant Superintendent Nan Murphy and her teaching and learning committees for really making those rich days full of professional learning. I might say that some teachers will have looked back on that and said maybe it was too much learning, which is a mixed bag, but we offered so much for them. And I think that our efforts certainly paid off for the opening. And if you saw my comments in the paper today, I gave us a B+. And that was purposeful. As superintendent, you want to say A+, we were perfect, it was great, but that wasn't true. There were glitches. And I think, as I said in the paper as well, if you looked for it to be different and better, we gave you a ton of examples of where it was different and better, and people were happy and engaged and could see that. If you were unsure and not happy, there were some glitches with technology and things that didn't resonate. I think my words in the paper were that fed that beast. And so I will say, by and large, it was a very successful opening. We take feedback and try to address that in the moment. And anytime that technology, you're solely relying on technology to work perfectly, it is a perfect setup that something will go wrong with a connectivity issue or a device not operating fully. And so just today at the high school, we put in new connection points and replaced 11 teacher devices. And so I really do value the feedback from the community, and we work to make decisions for the next day. Not, we'll get to that next week, or, well, when we get to the hybrid, that will be different. So I do appreciate that. I could jump to enrollment and personnel, but I would like to open it up to the committee if there are questions about opening that I could address specifically.
It's like Megan's got a question.
Sorry, I don't have a question, but I do just want to say more as a parent, being on the other side from you, I was expecting, to go in, and I was expecting issues. It was night and day from the spring, and my daughter has been engaged from the moment she logged on Monday, all the way throughout. And I would say she probably echoes Dan's comment on it being weird, especially at first. But I could hear them today in their breakout rooms and, getting to know each other too. And I just think it's been a really good experience for her so far. Her teacher, I am going to give a shout out to Miss Brewitt. And also from a special ed standpoint, I've already mentioned this to Eric, but her case manager, Miss McCarthy, reached out to us prior to school, which, for me was just a great experience to kind of have the chance to meet with the person who's going to be providing the services and be able to talk about my daughter's needs before the first day of school. So that was a huge benefit and, move in the right direction. So I just want to thank everybody again for doing a great job. And, we've had a good experience so far. So thank you.
Megan, I'm just going to echo that in a compliment to Eric. There have been some questions about should we be bringing more students back? And if we went strictly with the DESE formula for what constituted your special populations or high needs, we would have brought back about 55 students across the district. We currently have around 150 students in the district back receiving supports and services. And I just credit Eric and his team for that work, that we didn't hold to the DESE formula and say, we're just going to do the minimum, but almost tripled the number of students that we've been able to bring back.
That's great. As always, Eric is setting great examples. Sarah, did you have something?
I did. I know that there's been some questions out there, and I think it's actually John's word I'm stealing, the Twitter sphere, or however he puts it, about the length of days. Can you talk a little bit about, is this what people can expect moving forward? Can we expect a tweak in those? I know right now it seems that lower elementary is kind of on a full day schedule, 8 to 2:15 or thereabouts. And then the vets, I think is done a little earlier, and then the high school, goes asynchronous a bit earlier. Is this the way it's going to be moving forward, or will there be tweaks coming?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, there will always be tweaks coming, because as we get into a system and learn lessons and what's resonating and working, we want to continue with that, but we also want to course correct. I think there is some misunderstanding about the vets and the high school schedule being done at noon and there not being any afternoon activities. And I did have an opportunity to sit down with Principal Fox today after school, and I've connected with Principal Bauer, and I would just ask families to reach out to them for clarification if they're thinking that there isn't any afternoon expectations or activities at the secondary.
think probably as any of us with those secondary students would say, they like to pretend that there's no work going on when there's video games involved. At least that's my experience. Emily, did you have something?
Yeah, I have another question that's kind of out there on the internet in our community about because the rates in Marblehead are so low, people are wondering when we can bring students back full time, like when that date is, that phase of our.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great question as well, Emily. Currently, we're using the Board of Health and 6-foot distancing. We have said all along that we could use, if we had the 3-foot distancing, we could fill the buildings. Right now, we don't see that as a safe option, but if CDC or Mass Public Health or the local Board of Health say conditions are such that your distancing requirement could change, then we could bring more students back for longer.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, John, I think you're free to move on to an enrollment update.
Enrollment update is super interesting, and I almost think I have set myself up with the committee because of the depth of information that I provided you. But enrollment is a very interesting trend across the state, and the Superintendent's Association did a survey of all districts, and they got about a third of districts to respond. So about 120 school districts, Marblehead being one of them, that they're looking at homeschool data and kindergarten data. And so I tried to mirror some of the questions that they ask in giving you a grade by grade breakdown. The delta in Marblehead is what we budgeted for or what we planned in terms of the October 1st enrollment last year. We're about 255 students down from that. And so you will see the reasons for that, whether they were moved to another public school, a private school, a charter school, if they've opted for homeschooling, if they moved out of the state, and then the totals by grade level. I did want to point out kindergarten enrollment. You can see that we're down about 41 from what we had anticipated. In the 120 districts that responded to the state survey, there were 85 districts out of the 120 that said that they saw a decrease of enrollment in kindergarten. And that represented almost 5,000 students, 5,000 kindergartners that are not enrolled in those 85 districts. So I know that that 41 number probably jumps out at us, particularly because we charge kindergarten tuition. And I certainly monitor that with Michelle Cresta in terms of budgetary implications. But I think the enrollment information that I gave you is hopefully helpful and insightful by grade level. And so I would open it up if people have enrollment questions.
Sarah?
Yes, so with the enrollment being down, the way the funding comes in, that will come off our cherry sheets. So the funding source that will be depleted will actually be depleted at the town level, since our budget has already been allocated at town meeting. So our budget ironically won't change, but the revenue coming into the town on the cherry sheets will be depleted. Has there been discussion with the town how we'll address that? Because this is not an insignificant number. It's going to be a hefty number. And I know the COVID relief money cannot be used to supplement for any loss of revenue, which this would count for. So has there been a discussion with the town on the impact of that? And are they suggesting any remedy in the way of our budget?
Quick answer to the question, Sarah, is no and no. I meet with the chair of the finance committee and I meet with the town manager monthly right now. And it has not come up in conversation in terms of a request from town for budgetary implications right now.
Okay.
but I do track this with Michelle Cresta, and she is confident that we can, to use a bad phrase, weather the storm in terms of kindergarten tuition. And like everyone, we hope that we are able to go back into full day session if there's changes in conditions, and we could go back. And is there an opportunity to charge a partial tuition if we're able to do that for the last half of the year or the last quarter of the year? So certainly it's at the forefront of Michelle's mind, and something that we in our weekly meetings together keep tabs on.
Okay, no, that's really good news. I think you had shared that. You've been sharing a good updates with us on the kindergarten tuition, and I'm very happy to know that you guys have been on top of that. But those reductions in the cherry sheets, we've made really good headway on trying to be aware of what happens with the town affects our budgets and vice versa. So if we can kind of for the next meeting have somewhat of an answer on that, because I just want to make sure that the town isn't going to take potentially, I forget the exact student funding, but if it's around the $5,800 mark per student, we're looking at, over $1 million here that the town will take a hit on. So that, I think we need to have that conversation.
Happy to look into that, Sarah. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, John, do you want to go on to the personnel update?
Yes, I think similarly with personnel, there were, I think when I met with one of you, you said I got a little granular on the information that I provided. So hopefully the synopsis information in terms of leave of absence requests and remote teaching requests was helpful. I think everyone panicked when it came out that Swampscott had 25% of their staff asking for leave or remote teaching. That percentage for us is around 6%. And I tried to break it down for you in terms of teachers, paraprofessionals, tutors, our service providers, the number of those in the district, and people asking for a leave of absence or a remote assignment. I did note at the bottom that there were 7 requests for remote teaching assignment that were denied. And I broke that out as well by school. I did not, when the numbers get small, I try not to be very specific because I would not want an individual to be identified. And so on the leave information school and the names, I tried not to provide any specific information, but to list the new staff members in each school. But I'm happy to answer leave or remote teaching assignment questions.
Anybody have questions? Oh, Sarah, go ahead.
I did notice on there that there was a new position, an inclusion teacher at Glover. There was 3 new positions. 2 of them we had known about and discussed in the budget during the budget season, being the guidance counselor at Glover, as well as the humanities teacher at Vets. But the new position of inclusion teacher at Glover had not been discussed during the budget preparation process. So I was just wondering if you could speak to that a little bit and how it fits into the budget and how we came about adding the position.
Sure. I'm not sure specifically, Sarah. So this is where the new superintendent gets to phone a friend with Michelle Cresta or Eric Oxford, because I know we wouldn't put a position in that we didn't have money to put in, but they can bail me out here and let me know how we did that. So Eric, take it away.
Hey, no problem. So I don't have your document, John, in front of me, but I can assure that that was not a new position. It was actually an internal transfer from one school to another. So we did hire a new person, but there were no new allocated funds. It was about a 5-step process to get to where we needed to be, but there was no new budget line items. So
the position basically got a new title, so it looks new, but
it did. Exactly. Yeah, but nothing new, no added position to the budget.
That makes
No,
perfect.
it was a repurposed existing special education position. So it was
Ah.
not new.
That makes perfect sense. I just, when I saw a new position, I was a little questioning, but thank you guys.
No problem.
Any other questions about personnel? All right, then we will move along to the DESE health and safety guidelines for hybrid instructions. And there were new protocols released this week for reporting and mobile testing. So John, I believe you're gonna have Nan take that.
I am, and I just want to give a shout out to the Widger Road team before I transition to that. Just in Sarah's last question, me being able to ask Michelle and Eric to jump in and for them to have the information readily available. The support that we have in the collaboration on Widger Road is really what has helped to make the opening so successful. And so with that, I can dish to Nan, who has become kind of our COVID czaress in terms of the latest DESE iteration of what we will do for mobile response. So Nan?
All right, great. So I attended a conference call with the commissioner's team and I joked with the superintendent and I said, we actually got guidance that is actually pretty easy to follow. So I shared it with our reopening committee on Monday morning, but I will summarize it for you. But there is some substantial detail in there if you're interested in going a little bit deeper. So starting Monday, September 14th, all districts across the Commonwealth are now required to report COVID cases. So they provide a rapid response help center number. We have asked Deanna McCann to be in charge of the COVID reporting pieces. So she will be our lead in reporting both daily numbers and also assisting in what I'm going into next, which is our COVID mobile rapid response units. So units have been created to support districts in testing large amount of students or faculty. And it's very prescriptive in terms of when to call to get information about a mobile unit. I'm clear around saying to request information because it is not the district staff that employs a rapid response unit. The department and in collaboration with their health team will make that determination based on what we are reporting. So we may report and request, and that request may be denied based on what they know about our area. So given the following conditions, a mobile rapid response team might be deployed. If within a 14-day period, 2 or more individuals in a single classroom test positive for COVID-19. If that is the case, a rapid response unit may be deployed for all students within just that classroom. Also, the option within the 14-day period, if 3 or more individuals or 3%, whichever is greater, of any given grade or cohort tests positive for COVID-19, they possibly will deploy and test all individuals either in that grade or in that cohort. Another scenario would be if 3% of a school test positive, then the mobile unit would be deployed to test the entire school population. And finally, within a 14-day period, if 2 or more individuals within the same bus test positive, the rapid unit might be deployed and test all individuals that were transported on that bus. Prior to utilizing the mobile rapid response units, the superintendent or designee will inform staff members, families, and students that this is an option and that there's a possibility that these units will be deployed. Parents will then have an option to review the forms, communication forms that were also provided in this packet around how transmission and cases will be communicated out into their classroom community or into the school community. Parents can request if their child is part of a classroom that will be tested. Parents can request to be present during that testing. They can also deny their child be screened. And in that event, the children, that particular student would not be required to quarantine and would be allowed back into class. So it wouldn't change the way any privileges or any experiences they have school-based if they were to deny that. The Department of Health number is provided, and again, they request only one person from the district do that communication. So with that, I think I have it all covered, but I do have my notes here. If anybody is interested in asking a question, I can quickly reference the material or get back to you with the information if I don't have it in my hands. So just if anybody has any questions or if needs any further information, please let me know.
Thanks, Nan. This document for me was really helpful because to me, it really laid out the differences between what and I'm going to get the name wrong, but what that direct contact would be or close contact versus sort of just a regular contact. And I know that can be really confusing. I was actually asking questions about that of the tower nurse in my own role this week. And so it really laid it out nicely, I think, so that it was much more understandable about how we're contact tracing and who is exposed and who would be tested immediately versus those that are kind of optional and like this says in many places asymptomatic. So Megan, I know I saw your hand up.
Yeah, just Nan, thanks for this. And I think, the fact that there's kind of more proactive testing being made available is a great step in the right direction. Just a few kind of detailed questions. And if you don't have the answer, that's fine. Just some notes I made. But, we all know from, those of us who've had to take the test already that the turnaround time can sometimes be an issue. Is there any details on how quickly you might get results from those tests?
No. So that is something we can look into for you.
Okay. Yep.
That's an excellent question.
Well, we just had it done. And I'm like, 3 days, a lot can happen in 3 days. And then the other thing too, just when I was reading through that document, it says that we make the request for for that testing to be done, but it's not clear in that document what parameters they're actually using to make the decision. It just kind of says, that team will make the decision, but it just is a little bit gray for me. So again, I'm kind of expecting that there isn't information right now, but that is one that I'd like to kind of dig into a little bit more.
My assumption is that it's gray because it hasn't happened yet. And so, do we have enough units? Are we going to have enough staffing? Is it going to be able to be sustainable if we get numerous amount of calls in the same day? So I think they're intentional in keeping it gray at this time, but I will certainly press if I'm given the opportunity or a forum to ask more, a little bit deeper question about that. I certainly will do that.
Okay, thank you.
So hold on 2 seconds, Sarah, because I just wanted to address one of the things that Megan had said. I think with the testing on the asymptomatic people, if you read further down into this guidance, it says that it's deployed to the school optimally 4 or 5 days after the last known exposure. So in that snapshot view of testing as we know it, it should be picking up on people if they are asymptomatic positive cases. I have invited Helene Hazlett tonight. Helene, does that make sense from your Board of Health standpoint? Hold on, Helene. Can you unmute yourself?
We received this from Nan as you did, and we did discuss this protocol on Tuesday evening at our meeting. And as you know, the school committee is, the school department, the school committee are autonomous, and we are here to advise and to recommend. And we don't find any problems with the protocol. We do want to remind the school department that all cases will be reported to the health department, as they would be, any citizen would report, whether it would be reported by their physician or by themselves. So as far as the 4 days or whatever, we're fine with that if that's what they are satisfied with.
Great. Thanks, Elaine. Sarah.
Yes, my question, I'd be interested in the response about how they'll prioritize who gets these mobile units. And again, you may not get an answer to that, but if you do, that would be interesting. And then another thing was, a question that's arisen in the community quite often is this idea that our numbers, when they come out from the town, reflect residents in the town, versus these numbers will reflect not just residents, but students and staff that actually do not reside in Marblehead. And I think that there's a large amount of the people in the school community that are interested in that information, because it won't be the same at any given time. So do we have an intention of sharing that information? You know, not obviously that Joe Smith teaching biology, blah, 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 but that we have a positive case at the high school. We have 2 positive cases at VETS, and we can say resident versus non-resident, just for clarity of information.
So I'm gonna, okay, Helene. Go ahead. You're muted again.
Sorry, I muted you, Helene.
Okay.
And you know what? Why don't you answer on the school department side, and then I'll answer on what health department.
No, go ahead on the health department side. There is
Oh,
quite.
we only count the residents. In fact, those numbers, if you see sometimes that a number even in our figures in the last few weeks or months have changed, it's that person has been identified. Say they're a college student and they were identified in this community, and they go off to Pennsylvania to school. All of a sudden Pennsylvania inherits them and we don't have them. So if the same thing happens, if a teacher lives in Swampscott and teaches in Marblehead, we will count them when they're reported, and then we'll find out that they're a Swampscott resident. The numbers, we will take that person off, and that will then become another town's responsibility for their numbers. So Sarah, I hope that answers your question, because it starts out where it's reported and then it ends up where they're residing. And if the residence changes, it changes back and forth.
Thank you. No, that clarifies the Board of Health piece, which I had understood, but I think there was a lot of ambiguity in the community. What I'm concerned about is people are really looking for clarity coming out of what is happening in our schools. And that won't come out of our Board of Health numbers, because not everybody is a resident, and it wouldn't be proper for our Board of Health to be reporting that, but perhaps it is for our school department.
So I think, I don't think we've come to a consensus as a leadership team on that. I think we would be intentional in reflecting on the why. So I think when we put information like that out there, I think it would be important to make sure that it's not causing alarm or undue stress for people. So I think we would be very careful and want to make sure we're accurately representing the condition and health of our buildings and our staff. So I would follow the superintendent's lead on that.
Can I just add one thing? Especially given the low number of cases that Marblehead has right now, my only concern that kind of comes up right away is around confidentiality and people's, health, confidentiality around their health. So especially, I would caution against going towards any type of granular level and that type of reporting.
Yeah, I think going granular would be, in violation of HIPAA guidance, and we would never go there. So I think it would be very broad and very, in present, maybe the numbers in our school community as opposed to in certain schools or populations within schools.
HIPAA guidelines actually don't apply to any of this with the pandemic numbers. That was one of the things that came out in a recent case, but it was just one question that I had. Because I know that people are looking for that clarity, but if it's not possible, then it's not possible.
I guess we're not sure if it's possible and to what extent it would be offered, but it's certainly something that the superintendent and I will discuss and be able to update you on.
Okay, thanks.
And there was definitely guidance towards the end of that before it went into mock-ups on consent forms that talked about the Family Educational Rights Privacy Act, and it also did mention HIPAA as being careful to be mindful of it.
Yeah.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you, Nan. That covers it, correct, on both of those?
Yeah.
All right, great. Thanks. Is that something that would make sense to put up on the Back Together page?
Yes.
Great. I think that would be interesting for people to know, just kind of like with what I was saying about how it talks about close contacts versus direct contacts and all of that.
I'll connect with Kate about that and make sure it gets up there tomorrow.
Great. Thanks, Dan. All right, that leads us to our Fall Sports Season 1 update from Greg Siglarski. Hi, Greg.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. All right, so thank you for letting me take the time to discuss athletics today and how we'll move forward with our fall season. I just want to give you some quick background. I know that Dan and I met with you guys a couple weeks back. But on August 19th, the MIAA created 4 season opportunities for the 2020-21 school year, opposed to the usual 3 seasons that we have. They did this by cutting out an overlap between seasons and extending the spring season into July. It's broken down into the following dates. Your traditional fall or fall 1 season runs from September 18th to November 20th, and there's no postseason play. The winter season runs from November 30th to February 21st. The fall 2 or the floating season moves to February 22nd to April 25th. And the spring season is April 26th to July 3rd. Football, cheer, and unified basketball are listed as high-risk sports by the EEA and have been voted by the MIAA to automatically move to the fall 2 season, which is statewide, not just our league or our school. Since our last meeting where Dan and I gave you some updates, there's been many conversations, meetings, and votes from other NEC school committees. As of today, 7 other NEC schools are approved and plan to play their fall season in the traditional fall or fall 1 season. Those schools are Beverly, Danvers, Gloucester, Masconomet, Peabody, Salem, Saugus, and Swampscott. Lynn Classical, Lynn English, and Winthrop are all listed as red communities according to the COVID-19 community level data map on mass.gov. And any communities that are in red automatically have to move their sports to the fall 2 season. Although Saugus did come up as a red community in yesterday's update, they'll need to postpone their start until they're out of the red and approved by the MIAA or the DAC, which is our district athletic council, to return to play. So I guess what I'm looking for you tonight is, as a school committee, I need you guys to vote for us to either stick with our original vote from the principal and athletic directors meeting back on August 24th, which we stated we're moving all of our fall sports to the fall 2 season, or to approve us to play fall sports aside from football, cheer, and unified basketball in the traditional fall 1 season. One
Thanks.
quick side note on that before you guys discuss. Volleyball is typically a fall 1 season. None of the other NEC schools are playing in the fall 1 season. They've all moved to fall 2. Just because you can't get inside yet. And I know our building specifically, we can't get in until October 5th. And Dr. Bucky and Principal Bauer and I have talked at length about this, and we agree that we would probably look to move that to the fall 2 season as well.
All right, thanks, Greg. John, did you have anything that you wanted to add before I open it up to the committee?
Sure. I just want to commend Greg. He has done a tremendous amount of work. We spent an hour together this morning going through different scenarios and discussions with athletic directors and principals and the superintendent's meetings and school committees. And for us to move forward, it would be a vote of the school committee because we would begin fall sports practices on the 23rd Wednesday of next week. And that is prior to us moving into the hybrid model. And so that does require a vote of the school committee to move forward with fall athletics while you're in remote learning. I think that it makes sense now that there is a majority of districts in the NEC that are able, willing, and interested in fielding fall sports for us to move forward with those MIAA approved sports and accommodations. Greg has done a lot of work in terms of user fees and impact, and certainly there are implications for budget because busing will be different for these. But I think if we are able to use the MIAA guidance and DESE guidance for safely doing fall athletics, that I would support the committee voting in favor of that.
Thanks, John. Greg, I've just got a couple of questions. If students with the busing piece, the assumption I'd be making is that just as with our student population to get to and from school, that we would need more buses in order to transport kids to and from athletic events. Would students have the ability to ride with their parents to and from if that seemed like a better safety concession for specific families?
I don't want to cut Greg off, but I just would put out there that I think that districts could look at that because busing is a concern to and from school, to and from athletics, that if we developed a waiver for parents to transport students to and from, I can remember as a student athlete myself, whenever you weren't going to ride the bus back from a match or a meet, your parents would have to write a note. And I think that that would be logically something Greg and I would want to look into, is at the district level, if parents preferred to transport their students to and from an athletic competition. And I'm sure we're not the only ones looking at that.
Thanks, John.
Sarah, just to piggyback on that, we are meeting as a group of athletic directors tomorrow morning to actually hammer out a full schedule for the fall season, with the hope that you're only playing one program away. So for example, on a Tuesday, we could be hosting a boys soccer and traveling somewhere for girls soccer, and that would be the only away game we have. So you could take multiple buses and plan it out so we don't have to worry about parents driving anybody, and that kind of eliminates any liability issues, any other kind of carpooling issues that could arise from that.
Great, that's great. That's good thinking too. The other question, shoot, it just flew out of my head. I'll open it up to the rest of the committee and hopefully my question will come back. Emily?
Hi, so I had the same thought about the waiver, and my thought is that if a parent or student doesn't feel comfortable taking a bus, just that having the option to have your parent drive you, I think would be good to have that set up, because the buses are a place where they say that, COVID can spread pretty quickly on a bus. So maybe someone, doesn't feel comfortable. And if just leaving it open that you can have your parent drive you for, like, if you have a good reason.
Sure. I think if we do go down that road, I would assume it would have to be a vote by you guys, or maybe a waiver would be created by you guys. I would caution that we need to make sure it's only the son or daughter of the parents who are driving, not having kids drive themselves to games. No carpooling with other families, I think that would be a slippery slope.
Right. Yeah, no, like your own, you could say like it has to be someone within your own household that is driving you and you can only drive that one person. But just, yeah, whatever, just so everyone has the ability to get.
Yeah, I know that Danvers had their school committee meeting on Monday of this week, and they had a very similar thing put in place. I could get some language from them and see what they said and get that back to you guys as well.
Greg, with that, although I would 100% agree that a lot of families won't want their students on a bus because of, transmission issues. I also know from sitting in on our meetings that there was a strong concern that with the COVID provisions as they stand now for sports, that coaches were going to become police officers of, do you have your mask on? Did you have your temperature and all this stuff? And with this idea of the waiver, are we now adding another layer that coaches now have to make sure that students aren't riding together and we're not carpooling? Was it a parent and not a friend that drove you here?
Yes, absolutely. That's something that we're going to have to, whether that's done, the day before, if that's done by noon, if that's done at some point during the day, we can kind of set a deadline on that. And if it's not in my hands or Mark Tarmy's hands, our assistant athletic director, then they either don't go or they're on the bus. I guess we have to be pretty strict with that, I think, and consistent.
Sarah, I think to that point, it's part of the conversation that Greg and I had today that coaches' education will be critical to the success of this, particularly that the school committee has a mask policy that coaches can't go quote unquote rogue and wink, wink, nod, nod. You don't have to wear your mask unless, AD Siglarski is there or Dr. Bucky is by the field, that there's really no margin for error. If teams can't follow the rules or coaches can't enforce the rules, then we would have to shorten that season or eliminate it.
And also on that, I met with our athletic trainer on Tuesday, and we kind of went through any scenario we could think of and how we would react to it, and also kind of mapped out what a day would look like, whether it be a practice day, a home game day, an away game day, and kind of came up with all the protocols that we would have in place. And I think we have a pretty firm grip on how we would actually make this happen.
So this seems like a no-brainer, but I just want to be clear. So it is your recommendation, Greg, that we vote to approve the fall one, with the exception of those high-risk areas starting now. Is that correct?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Is it your recommendation that we vote to approve the start of fall one now or on September 22nd?
I think after lots of discussion, I think if you guys feel that would be best, it's your decision. I've kind of given you the facts and kind of laying out either side. And I think that you guys can kind of talk it out and ask me questions. I'm happy to answer more. And what you guys feel is best is what we can go with. I know I'm kind of dancing around a little bit, but
you are. And I put you on the spot. I did, but you're the expert at this. So I want to make sure, we're not experts on how to manage the athletic department.
So to answer your question more directly, I think if we do move forward with athletics, with what we can play, we can make it happen. And I think we have a good plan in place where we can be successful and safe as possible. I mean, no different than coming to school. And I guess kind of on that note, I talked with Dr. Bucky today for a while, like you mentioned. A fear of mine is that when we open this up, if we open this up and we start practicing outside of cohorts and maybe playing against other towns, that it would delay the opening of in-person school. And that would be the last thing I would want, because obviously our student athletes are students first, and we want to make sure that they're getting the best academics they can on a school day. And while being fully remote is not ideal right now, I don't want to extend that if we don't have to. But on that same note, I do think that we have a plan in place that can make running athletics this fall one season successful.
And we would be doing that in place of that every 3-week model.
That would be essentially out the window, and we would look at out of season coaching, that whole other conversation that we had in our subcommittee down the road.
Okay.
Megan?
So, Greg, I want to first echo what John said and thank you for all the work you've put into this. I know a lot of time since we met last has gone into it, and that it's clear that you've kind of taken a very thoughtful approach and really thinking about the best interests of our students holistically, not purely from an athletic standpoint. So I appreciate all the work and time you've put into it, and still need to put into it. You mentioned the scheduling and the protocols, and there's still a lot of work to be done. So I just want to thank you for all that. The one question I have that hasn't been asked yet, though, is you mentioned there are some schools that are red now, and so must move into fall 2. But if they were in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks or sometime in the middle of the season to turn yellow, would they be able to participate at that point, or is it an all or nothing type?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so Saugus has kind of been on that cusp. They were in red to start when we initially voted to move everything to fall 2, and then they came back to the yellow, similar with Salem. And like I said, Saugus just yesterday got pushed back into that red. So what they would have to do once the season starts, they would have to speak with our district athletic committee, who is District 5, which is made up of a couple of leagues locally around us. And they would go to them with their application to come back and show them why, and they would either be approved or denied and pushed to fall 2.
Okay. That's all I had, that hasn't already been asked, so thank you.
David? Oh, you're muted.
Thanks, Greg, for what you're doing. And I know you've worked closely with Dan. I guess my only question is, why are we sort of a follower and not a leader in this when it comes to athletics? We know what it means to our students in the high school, and it seems like we've waited for everybody else to make a decision, and now we're making a decision. And I don't understand why, with the instances that we have in Marblehead and what our level of COVID is, why we couldn't have been more of a leader here in this. It seems like we're just sort of jumping in, and it doesn't seem like we're really confident that we're that this is the right thing to do.
Sure. So I think to be really honest and open with you, we're the last school committee meeting to meet. There was 3 other schools this week that met. Danvers, Gloucester, and Saugus. They all voted just this week. So it was just a matter of kind of when our school committee meeting fell. I also, that after just lots of discussion with other ADs and with Dr. Bucky and with our reopening subcommittee, we're just making sure we're making the right decision. It's an important one and a big one, and we want to make sure that we're putting the safety of our kids first. And I do think that we're making the right decision by voting now.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with Greg. I mean, because obviously this is at least the 3rd meeting that we've talked about this. So I actually really appreciate how thorough we've been on this, and that, it's not as though our students are going to miss anything within our timing of a vote. I think that, could be a big question of did we act too soon or not soon enough. But I think that, waiting and seeing where our numbers are at and how our rollout's going, and just as when you guys took your original vote with the ADs and the principals, it seemed to make quite a bit of sense, because numbers are kind of around our county and within our conference were higher. And we've seen them kind of fluctuate, and they're in a better place now, and other towns are in a better place, so that we would have more people to compete with. And the idea of competing in other towns and putting our students into play with towns that maybe are not quite as good as Marblehead, I think to wait and make sure on that, I'm very appreciative.
And actually, I've had the opportunity to be part of those meetings, and I've been so impressed with Greg and the other members of the committee and how thoughtful they've been in their approach to this. They all have been steadfast that we want to get our athletes on the field, but they want to make sure that we're doing it safely, because where Marblehead's numbers are really good, we want to make sure that we're not putting, like Greg said, school first, our schools opening at risk by bringing our students into these high towns with higher levels. So I've been really impressed with how thoughtful a process it's been. And I felt at all times it was the priority of that committee to get our student athletes back as quick as possible in the safest manner. And I've been very impressed.
David, I don't know if it will make you feel better, but there are a couple schools, and Greg, please correct me if I'm wrong, that are voting to go to fall, but are not voting for this next week as a start, but have moved it to an October start date for
Okay.
practices.
Yeah, Danvers isn't even beginning their practice until October 5th. I think the only thing that we're going to miss is, and again, this can be part of a vote or just part of a discussion, we would miss 2 days. So most of our peer schools are starting on the 21st. Since we're voting tonight and would only allow us tomorrow and the weekend to register kids and get kids approved and cleared to play. It's also Rosh Hashanah. So I don't want to force that on families as well. And just if we're missing 2 days, we're creating a schedule literally tomorrow for the entire fall season. And I can kind of tell the other schools, we're not going to schedule for that Monday and Tuesday once we start, because we have to have 2 full weeks of practice before we can play a game.
Right.
It also allows us time to walk through
Okay.
the captains to kind of what the protocols are going to be and the new modifications to their sport, because some are pretty substantial. Like I discussed a little bit last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever we met, and make sure we're all on the same page for Wednesday when we do start.
So just to be clear, Greg, because I was just about to ask this, so I'm glad you talked about the schedule. So the start date for practice would be the 23rd?
Wednesday the 20th.
September 23rd. And then the first day that we'd be eligible then for gameplay would be October 7th.
Correct, yes.
You have to have 2 full weeks of practice.
Golf is a little bit different. They only have to have 7 days. So they
Okay.
can play a little bit earlier, but most of our other sports are full 2 weeks.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Greg, how is it going with allowing our students from the Metco program to be able to participate? Are they going to be able to participate fully in this? And then also with, all the headaches around busing, then be able to make it home on those evenings?
So to be honest with you, and Nan can jump here too if she wants to, I have a call with Jasmine tomorrow morning after this vote, just because I didn't want to start wasting time and spinning wheels that we don't have a decision made yet. So we're going to talk tomorrow morning once our decision here is made and kind of come up with a plan and how we're going to do it.
Great. And then, I know from some of the other conversations that have kind of been going on around the district and around the town with our mask policy, that because our mask policy states on school grounds that it would be the expectation that all of our students, whether they're practicing or competing, as well as the students who are coming in and competing against us, be masked at all times when they're on our school grounds, as well as our Park and Rec has now adopted our school policy, so that even if we're on a cross-country meet at Seaside, the same rules would apply. I guess the only question that I would sort of leave out there for you is, do you think it would be helpful, and I don't need an answer from this now, or just kind of make an offer on it, do you think it would be helpful if you needed any other supplemental policies from us to really ensure the safety of our student athletes, as well as those coming in?
So the MIA kind of answers that question for us. You have to wear a mask at all times. You can, if you're within 10 feet of somebody, you can take a quick mask break, but the default is that you're wearing a mask at all times.
Great. That's good to know.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah, David?
Yeah, well, once again, I just want to, I appreciate all the work that's been done on this, but I think Marblehead should, given the position we're in, we should be in more of a leadership position. And I don't know how to say this, but I guess, seeing that Masco was the first one to jump on, and here we are 3 weeks later, it seems like we're following. And we all understand the importance of athletics to our student athletes. And I'd like to see us be a leader in this issue. If the statistics and everything related to COVID allow us to be there, I'd like to see us to be more of a leader instead of a follower in this issue, because, it's very important. And, we're jumping in sort of as the last school, and I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed. That's all. Because I know there's so many student athletes out there that want to participate, and I think we could have played a better role in working within the NEC, or maybe we were. I'm not saying that we weren't, but and it does depend whether it's yellow, green, red, what situation we're in. But I'd like to see us take a leadership role in this, because it's important to our student athletes. So I'm glad we're going to start. I'm glad we're going to be back participating. And I'm hopeful that, as we move forward with winter sports, we can take the same approach.
Thanks for your feedback. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, so I will ask for a motion to allow the Fall 1 sports season to begin on September 23rd, 2020, with the provision that all MIAA safety and all district policy be followed during practices and competitions.
So moved.
Can you put a
moved?
caveat in there? Sorry about volleyball, because that is different.
Yes, so, okay, so you want, with the exclusion of volleyball, you want added on. Okay, so the motion will read, since we don't have a second, I think I can just go back and restate this. A motion to allow the Fall 1 sports season with the exclusion of volleyball to begin on September 23rd, 2020, with the provision that all MIAA safety and all district policy be followed during practices and competitions. Does that sound good, Greg? Okay.
So
Can you
moved.
email that?
Yes. Sarah, I can type it to you afterwards because I actually have it written down.
Okay, because I have half of that and then I lost it.
All right, Megan has moved.
Second.
Emily second. Any last comments before we vote?
I want to thank Greg and all of his coaches and everybody involved, and Dan, and there's been a lot of work that's gone into this, and I don't think anybody waited too long. I think they did their job, and I'm really proud of the work that committee did.
Yeah. Thank you, Greg. I know that none of these decisions are easy to be making at this point. And I appreciate that you've taken your time on this and have been so thorough in your presentations as well.
I think we've got a lot of student athletes who are anxiously awaiting our decision. So,
yep. You know what? Jasmine's hand is raised, and just because I had asked the Mesco question and Greg had talked about her, I'm gonna allow her to just weigh in quickly. Jasmine, I'm assuming you want to weigh in.
Hi. Yes, sorry. I'm still doing some deliveries. I wanted to answer that I do have a response regarding the transportation. I'm picking up in subbing for the students, but I also wanted to, I just had a curiosity regarding how we're handling the cohorts. I think cohorts for students who live in Marblehead, having mixed cohorts is more reasonable, but for students who live in Boston and have siblings, that can cause concern. That was the only thing.
Thanks, Jasmine.
Sarah, can I ask Jasmine a question? Is that allowed?
Or I don't know.
Is it about the sports transportation?
Yeah, so does she feel she can work it out so that Metco students will have an equal opportunity to partake? Is she confident that we'll be able to work out that transportation piece?
I'm confident that we'll be able to give the students an option for transportation. The bus passes are fully covered in costs, and the students, BPS allows students of grades 7 to 12 to take public transportation with the consent of their parents. I think that, so that, yes, I do think it's possible. Yes, I am mostly concerned with the distance, and then our students being on potentially public transportation, which exposes them to more risk. That's all.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid concern. I would like to see if there's some way that we can figure out a way to kind of allow those students equal access while keeping them equally safe if we can. And I'm sure that can be worked off on offline, but I just want to make sure that it's kind of not a choice between them partaking in the activity versus safety.
That's definitely one of the main things I want to discuss with Greg tomorrow.
Yeah, Jack, if you feel any better, we are required, we're recommended, and we're going to do symptom checks every day for every kid before any practice or game, as well as temperature checks, and that's all going to be recorded by myself. And if that makes you feel any better.
It does. And I had one question regarding locker rooms. What is mass policy for there, and cleanliness? It's a question that a parent had for me, and so I wanted to advocate and ask.
We're actually not using locker rooms. They're entirely off limits. So
great, thank you.
Students are encouraged to bring an athletic bag to and from every practice or game, and that goes home with them every day to be sanitized and brought back.
Thank you so much for the clarification.
All right, we have a motion and it's seconded, so I will call for a roll call vote. Sarah Gold, yes. Megan Taylor?
Yes.
Emily Barron?
Yes.
David Harris?
Yes.
Sarah Fox?
Yes.
All right, that motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Greg. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, that moves us on to our finance and organizational support. We had a schedule of bills in the packet. Hopefully everybody got a chance to look that over. So I'll ask for a motion to approve the identified schedule of bills totaling $264,152.40.
So moved.
Megan moved. Can I get a second?
Second.
Emily second. Anybody have any questions on that? All right, I will call for a roll vote. Sarah Gold, yes. Megan Taylor?
Yes.
Sarah Fox?
Yes.
David Harris?
Yes.
Emily Barron?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, Michelle, that brings us up to you and the contract to award the temporary custodial staffing.
Yes, thank you. Never brought a contract to you so quickly, but given the circumstances, we want to get this put to bed and signed and sealed. So on this past Monday, we received an open bids for the temporary custodial staffing. This is in response to our COVID cleaning needs and protocols. We're estimating that we will need approximately 30 full-time additional custodians to meet all the needs while the students are in school. So we put this out to bid. We put an estimated amount for up to 14 full-time weeks for this contract. This contract can be extended through June 30th, 2021. So we will just bring it back to you for an additional vote. But we did receive 5 qualified bids for this contract. The low price ranged from, the range was $320,096 from Go-To Services LLC of East Providence, Rhode Island. And the high price was SJ Services Inc. out of Danvers of $480,729. We actually did receive a 6th bid that was after the due date due to a delivery issue, which was not due to us. And that price was even higher. So it was quite interesting, but we did do our due diligence, and Todd has talked to all the references for Go-To Services. And we're very happy with the feedback we've received. And this, while this firm is out of Rhode Island, they do have a Massachusetts presence. However, they are very significant in Rhode Island. They have contracts for cleaning courthouses and colleges and community colleges. So they're significantly into the cleaning business. So basically, we are just looking for the temporary staffing piece. We will be providing all the chemicals, all the equipment, and we will provide the oversight. So we are just looking for the bodies, basically. So we are recommending or requesting that you do approve this contract to Go-To Services in the amount of $320,096. And this contract, as soon as all the paperwork is done, will become effective. And hopefully we will have these people be able to join us at the beginning of October. That is our hope.
Great, thanks, Michelle. Just a quick, I'll take a motion in just a moment. I just want to clarify the motion, Michelle, that you gave to me. It says staffing through June 30th, 2021. Is that the correct date that you want me to keep in there?
Yes, if the dollar amounts are good, and if we don't need to use the full 14 weeks before June 30th, 2021, or if we find our need is not for 30 full-time people, then we can certainly extend it through that. So the contract end date will be June 30th, 2021. But I expect that we will probably need to come back for additional dollars to be authorized for this contract.
Okay, so I will ask for a motion to award the contract for temporary custodial staffing through June 30th, 2021 to Go-To Services LLC of East Providence, Rhode Island in the amount of $320,096 and authorize the chair to sign the contract on behalf of the committee.
So moved.
Megan moved.
Second.
Emily second. All right, any questions for Michelle? Yep, Megan.
Michelle, how are we funding this?
Yeah, good question.
This is being funded through the CARES Act through the town. I had put a dollar figure in of, I believe, $380,000 for the initial contract. So this did come in slightly, a little bit more than slightly below my estimated cost for the 14 weeks.
So are we kind of reaching the limit of that bucket?
We're getting close to the $1 million that we have committed to the town. Yes, we are almost up against that $1 million. We will need to have an additional discussion if our costs continue to rise, or we will need to really dive into our budget and see where we might be able to have some significant savings. And we do have a number of vacant custodial and bus driver positions right now, which we are not paying, but we are keeping those dollars reserved for those positions. So we do have some flexibility within our operating budget. But right now we are anticipating using the CARES Act for this entire contract.
And if we need to go beyond 14 weeks carries us to the first of the year?
Basically, yes. And that's where our CARES Act funding right now will expire.
Okay, so if they don't renew that grant and we need to continue this, do we have
Then
a plan?
we are going to be creative and really dive into our budget and see where we can have some savings.
You are the most positive person I know when it comes to these answers.
And I am not concerned with that right now. I really am not. You know, maybe in December I'll have a very different perspective on that, but right now I'm not overly concerned.
Okay.
About that.
Fair enough.
David?
Well, I'm just wondering what this contract covers since we're currently not in school. And then when we go back to school, it will be a hybrid plan. I know where there's alternating students come in. So how does it supplement the work that or the cleaning that we need to be done, that needs to be done, but yet we're also in a hybrid plan where we don't have all the students at our school.
Right. Regardless if we are in the hybrid plan or if we are in back to full inclusion right now with the COVID situation, we are functioning under a protocol where we have to have, as long as students are in the building, which they are currently, we have very limited students in the building right now. More coming next week, even more coming the week after that. Then once we get to October 5th, we will be in the full hybrid situation. Once the October 5th date comes around, we are going to have a lot more high touch areas that we need to touch every hour or two.
Okay.
Every bathroom will be fully sanitized every 2 hours. Every high touch area, all stairway handles, railings, all of
Yep.
that will be deep cleaned every 2 hours. And with the students moving through the cohorts, where we are in a Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday, within the alternating Wednesday situation, we basically need to do a deep cleaning every single day because the same cohort is not going to be in the buildings 2 days in a row. So we need to do a ultra thorough cleaning every night. So that's why we are hoping to break up these 30 individuals between daytime and nighttime to make sure we get the full cleaning and the disinfecting done that we needed for each day.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, I will call for a vote. Sarah Gold, yes. Megan Taylor,
Yes.
Emily Barron,
Yes.
David Harris,
Yes.
and Sarah Fox.
Yes.
All right, thanks, guys. That carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. All right, so that leads us on to our school committee communications and discussion items. First up is our policy discussion. So last Thursday, Emily and I presented 2 different policies that are, well, one is being basically rewritten / revised, and the other one is a supplemental for COVID, policy ACAB for sexual harassment, and then policy EBC, supplemental emergency plans for COVID-19. So this, by having a vote tonight, would put us right with how our policies state and what is best practice for adopting new policies. I'll ask for a motion separately on both of these. So I'll ask for a motion to accept the new policy ACAB for sexual harassment.
So moved.
Megan moved.
Second.
Emily second. Was there any other questions on that before we vote? All right, roll call vote. Sarah Gold, yes. Megan Taylor,
Yes.
Emily Barron,
Yes.
David Harris,
Yes.
Sarah Fox.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. 5-0, that passes. And then I will ask for a motion to adopt policy EBC supplemental for emergency plans for COVID-19.
So moved.
Megan moved.
Second.
Emily second. Any other additional questions on that one? Okay, roll call vote. Sarah Gold, yes. Megan Taylor,
Yes.
Emily Barron,
Yes.
David Harris,
Yes.
and Sarah Fox.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. That motion carries 5-0. So now, next we have 2 different resolutions up for discussion. The first is the resolution on COVID testing. We had this on the agenda 2 weeks ago, but I had neglected to put a vote on it, so we tabled it for today. Megan, I will turn this over to you for a moment, since this one was sort of brought to the committee on your request.
So, yeah, I did raise it a couple weeks ago. And at that point, there was another school district, I believe it was Lincoln Sudbury who had put it together. They have a nurse and a doctor on their school committee. They'd done a significant amount of research to come up with this, and they passed it. And through MASC, it was kind of forwarded on to other districts. So I just raised it in that everything else with COVID. And, you know, I think as we heard from Nan today with the rapid response and mobile testing, that I think we're in a very different place than even a few weeks ago when this was passed. We said we would table it and bring it back. I didn't really think it was fair to not do that. But I think we're just in a very different position than we were a few weeks ago.
Thanks, Megan. So I don't know if we want to move forward with this or not. I guess I'll leave a little bit of discussion out there before we call for a motion, given what Megan just said. I think the problem that I saw with this was that I'm not actually okay with the therefore be it resolved. So it says for the public, it says therefore be it resolved before any district brings students back into session, we request the Commonwealth allocate funding for regular proactive testing for teachers, students, and staff. And that support school districts to identify. So they have not, basically that first piece is my problem, is that they have not, the Commonwealth hasn't allocated funding for this, and we're bringing our students back. And I think we're doing so in a very safe way. I do think that testing in the long run is how we get people back into classrooms more full time, but I don't think it's necessary in order to do so in a hybrid situation, and how we're functioning in our district and the plan that we have to put through for our district.
Yeah, and Sarah, I completely agree with that. I think, you know, this was the resolution that was passed in some other districts. So, you know, I think no matter what we do, that's, you know, if we did want to move forward, then I would, you know, completely agree with that statement and that change too. So.
Anybody else have any thoughts on this?
So Megan, is it your recommendation that we do not move forward on this resolution?
I don't have a recommendation. It's up for discussion for the committee.
Does anybody else have any other thoughts on whether they want to move forward with this?
I think that there's several points in this resolution that are very, very valid. I agree that it would not make sense for us to sign a resolution that says therefore it be resolved when we already know we're not putting in place what we're asking for it to be resolved. So it just seems that whether I agree with this or not, we've already said we're not doing what we're asking the resolution to do. So it seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that also.
All right, so it sounds like we don't want to move forward on this one with any type of motion.
Through the chair, I think you could ask for a motion, and if it fails to get a motion, then that's your vote.
All right, so I will ask for a motion to accept the resolution of the COVID testing. Sorry, the resolution for COVID testing in schools.
Wah, wah. The
Yep,
game's
all right.
over. You do not get a vote.
So I do not have a motion for that. So let's carry on to our next resolution. This one was requested. We had sort of looked at it earlier in the summer a little bit, and then things got busy. And then Emily brought it back to my attention a couple weeks ago and asked that it be put back onto an agenda. So Emily, do you want to open this one up a little bit?
Sure. I think as a school committee that we have the responsibility to stand up and make a statement that we don't tolerate any kind of hate in our town. And I think this is a good way to start that, because everything begins with teaching our children how to behave, and it starts in school. At the youngest ages, we teach children how to be inclusive and anti-racist. And I think saying that we are going to start thinking about that in this district more than we have been, I think makes a great point. And I think passing this will help that. I guess that's
Thanks, Emily.
where I came from when I asked for it to be brought back up.
So
What
I'll
is
go-
the origin of this? Can you, Megan had noted the last one was Lincoln Sudbury. Could you tell me what the origin of this one is? I'm guessing those isn't your language.
No, it's not our language. This one was up on the MASC website.
Yeah.
I think they created it.
Yeah,
I
isn't it?
believe so too.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, so I will ask for a motion to pass the resolution on social justice and anti-racism.
So moved.
Sarah Fox moved,
I'll second.
Megan second. Any other statements on this?
I don't know if it's a statement on this resolution specifically, but I just think to follow up with what Emily said, especially kind of in light of the recent events that as school committee members and John, that we've attended and that have been supported by the Marblehead Racial Justice Team and the Rotary Club this week. And, in support of what's right, obviously, but also, we are a Metco district. And I think we have to show support and inclusion and do everything we can to make sure that our school district provides that for everybody.
So I'll just quickly read what we're being resolved for is that we're resolved that the Marblehead Public Schools and all the school districts in the Commonwealth must guarantee that racist practices are eradicated and diversity, equity, and inclusion is embedded in practice for our students, families, faculty, and staff. We must ensure our own school culture and that of every district in the Commonwealth is anti-racist, that acknowledges that all lives cannot matter until Black lives matter. And I think for me, I think there's, we've had these issues in this district. We've had graffiti on playgrounds. We've had graffiti and racist graffiti, and we've had racist and anti-Semitic graffiti in bathrooms, and that this happens on a regular basis in our district. And so I think, this is not just some, kind of current thing that we're going to pass as a school committee. I think that this resolution really sort of pushes forward some of the things that this district needs to bring to light and needs to really tackle.
I agree that this is a very this has always been an important, I want to say that this has always been an important issue. I know it's come to the forefront in the last several months, but I think that this is not a new issue. This is not something that, should just be talked about now because that's, when it's in the news cycle. This has always been and will always be an important issue. So I think this is a very important resolution. Have we, or do we need to at any point run the wording by this resolution by our legal counsel or no?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. I just didn't know if resolutions needed to be run by them or no.
All right, anybody else? All right, then I will call for a roll call vote. Sarah Gold, yes. Megan Taylor?
Yes.
Sarah Fox?
Yes.
David Harris?
Yes.
And Emily Barron?
Yes.
Great, that motion passes and the resolution passes 5-0. All right, Megan, I will turn it over to you at this point for the school committee website update.
I almost forgot I was on for this. So can I share my screen?
Should be able to, I think.
There we go. Oh, I have to click share. That would help. Okay, so the last time we spoke, I can't remember which meeting it was, but we talked about putting together a school committee website. So similar to what has been put together for Back Together Marblehead and the reopening plans. And one of the reasons really was to provide a one-stop shop where the community can get information on our meetings, the meeting materials, our calendar. And, it also helps make it a little bit easier for specifically Lisa, who has to do, Lisa, who's kind of got a lot of the workload on her shoulders to update the district website, and it's not the easiest tool to be using. So this is an easier tool, a one-stop shop, and can really help us provide the community the information that we all know that they're looking for. So when we talked last, we said we put together an action plan and some timelines to make it come to fruition. So I've worked with Kate Thompson again. She's our communication expert at the moment, who we are all very thankful for. But she helped us put together this phased approach. I sent you all an email earlier this week kind of highlighting some specific pieces of data that we're going to need from you. I wanted to make sure that you had plenty of time to put it together. It's, bio, photo, that type of stuff, nothing earth-shattering. So what we plan to do over the next week or so is to get all that data sent over to Kate and myself. We'll upload it, we'll review and make some modifications, which we've already started. And we'll come back to the school committee in our next meeting, which is October 1st, for a final presentation of what that first phase of the website will look like. And then it will give us a couple of days if there's any tweaks we want to make, with a target go live date of phase 1 for September 5th. So after September 5th, we should, the calendar will be there, our bios. We will be able to link to the policies, which for now we'll keep on the district website. That's something we can talk about for phase 2 if we want to modify how we're doing that. MASC does provide some tools for that. Kate and I are one of the things we talked about in our meeting was push notifications for calendar updates. So that would be a phase 2 piece, because I think Kate and I need to test that out a little bit before, once we have the calendar up and running. And then one of the other things that we can do with this website is get some analytics on usage, so we can really see where people are going to help us figure out how we want to continue to improve the site. So I think that's it, really. I'm just looking at this slide that I'm putting up in front of you, which walks through those phases. The calendar is probably the biggest piece, I think, the biggest win for us, because we can put our school committee meetings out there, and then we can post the meeting materials. Hopefully, we'll get into a rhythm where we can post those the day of, so that people can start to have the materials available for, the community can have the materials available so they can follow along in our meetings, especially, if we're continuing in a virtual approach for now. And then I'm hoping, I know we've talked about this before, but I think we're finally starting to get into a little bit more of a rhythm where we can have those subcommittee meetings, at least the major ones, right? Policy, budget, facilities, on a more regular flow, so that we can put those out on the calendar, with a little bit more regularity. And we all know the strategic plan is on tap for this year. That is one piece I'd like to get a little bit more information in terms of what that planning process is going to look like, and we can add that to our website too. Again, for phase 2. So the first one is just getting it up and running, getting the basic data out there, getting some links for other resources. And then, I think we can have it up and running like I said, by October 5th, which is a pretty quick turnaround.
Megan, do you know if you can add a section with the link to the YouTube channel? Because I know for people who don't have cable, they've really enjoyed being able to watch live on YouTube our meetings. So,
Yep, Kate's gonna look at that. She's already posted out archived meetings, but she's gonna try to find a way to link to that YouTube so you can, again, one-stop shop, right?
yes, that'll be perfect. Thanks.
Yeah.
Kate and I were trying to embed that YouTube page when I first created it. We were trying to embed it onto Back Together because that was really where it started from. And we just were having a lot of trouble with it and kind of I'm certainly not tech savvy and just kind of figuring that out. So I do think it seems like we can probably do that. We just need to figure out exactly how.
Yeah, if it's not for 10/5, we'll look at it as soon as possible, but it's definitely on the list.
I'm here, guys. I just wanted to let you know that I don't know if am I allowed to talk? Am I public comment? I don't know.
No, you're an expert that's been helping us.
Okay, so yes, all that's great. The site is in great shape. It'll be ready to go live for when you need it to be. And I think what will happen is on the homepage there'll be a live streaming section. So Sarah and you and I can troubleshoot that a little bit, but in an ideal world, that is where people can go and watch ongoing live school committee meetings. And then I added a page that has an archive of all the past meetings and all the past live streams so that they're all in one place. So yeah, I think it should work out pretty good.
Great. And it might behoove us, Kate, to look at right now, the YouTube page is linked to my email.
Yeah.
So it might behoove us to put that somewhere else so that when I'm no longer on school committee, it can still continue forward.
Yep. Sounds good.
That day will never come, Sarah. Sarah, did you stop sharing my screen? I just want to make sure. I mean, I'm good for it to
yes,
be
your
shared.
screen has stopped sharing.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody have any other questions? This is exciting. Thanks, guys.
No, I just want to thank everybody who's been involved because I think in the last year and certainly the ability to have this information online is helpful. And we all know that there's lots of options out there. And Emily and Cindy Schieffer are working with that on the building committee, and we're trying to communicate with the public as much as we can there. And anything we can do to improve our communication as a committee is great. So thanks for everybody that's been involved in this. It's really good. And I appreciate all the work that you've done, Catherine, and look forward to seeing this come up and go forward.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think it'll be
Yep,
good. It's hard
definitely.
it's hard to find information. It shouldn't be that hard.
Right.
So let's make it a little bit easier for all of us and the community.
Right. And one of the ideas that I had as you were talking, Megan, about, because I know one of our concerns with the push notifications is that anytime we made a little tweak to something on that calendar, that it would issue out another email. I wonder if there's a way that we could do like a weekly recap email of what's on tap for this week. Then with, if some major change went on, then that we could push that out, at that point. If that might be sort of a solution to some of our concerns.
Okay.
Getting a thumbs up from Kate.
Yeah.
Then yes.
All right, great.
Sorry, just one thing on that, Sarah. One thing that Kate and I talked about also is having kind of like an upcoming events piece, probably on the homepage, so you can see kind of the meetings. You don't have to kind of click through the calendar. You can see what's coming up.
Great. Yeah, this is exciting. And way to go. We had talked about an October rollout and you guys are on it.
Like my deadlines.
All right, David, that brings us to a building project update.
Is there any way I can share my screen?
I think you should be able to.
So let me try. So can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
So big milestone. We have a building permit, and people may say, well, haven't we been building the school all along? But There's permits that the town requires as you go through the various stages of construction, demolition, and various things. But this is a really big milestone that in order to get a building permit, there's a lot of submittals that go to the town that have to be reviewed, and plumbing, electrical, and everything that goes into it. So as you can see, we received this on September 14th, so just a couple of days ago, and we're really excited. And even though people have seen the building, seems like it's moving forward, but this is one of the final steps in the process, and we're really excited about it. And if you haven't been over to the site, we encourage people to stop by. It has, we've completed the steel erection. They poured the concrete for the second floor, and that work is going on, and it just continues to move forward. So it's really exciting to have this building permit in hand and let everybody know that the project is on schedule and on budget and moving forward.
Another great milestone, David. I feel like they just keep
Yep.
coming. It's good.
It is, for sure.
Great. Thanks, David. All right, so that leads us to our closing business. Any new business that we want to address? Emily?
I just wanted to bring up the Metco presentation that we attended, because there's no update. So John, Sarah, and I attended the Metco Inc. presentation that the Marblehead Rotary gave on Tuesday. And I sent everyone the slide deck, but it was really informative and exciting to learn about the possibilities that the possibilities our Metco program can bring to our community. And for me, I learned so much about the Metco program that I didn't know about. And I thought it was so great. And one of the highlights that for me was there was a slide that said every student in a Metco district is able to experience an inclusive, equitable, and anti-racist education. So essentially every student in our district has these opportunities because we're part of this program, and they're offering all these different ways for us as a community to get involved, as families to get involved, as our students, our Metco students. Everyone can come together and really learn and experience this great program that we have. And I hope we can start really implementing some of it into our schools more than we have, just because I feel like it's kind of been put to the side, and I think it's really an asset that we have. So I just wanted to give that little update.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Thanks for bringing that up, that we had attended that on it was Tuesday morning.
Yep.
And it's funny, as you started talking about that one slide, I was actually grabbing my phone to highlight that slide because I had snapped a picture of it on my computer screen. So I'm glad that you brought that one up, because it was a really powerful slide.
Is there an opportunity perhaps to, I don't know where it would live, maybe on Back Together Marblehead, to have a Metco section that really highlights the ways that people can get involved? I think with COVID being what it is, those students feel probably more isolated than ever. They're not getting to see their friends in our community as easily, and they have many more hardships than, with the transportation and everything than really students that reside in town here have. And I wonder if there might be an opportunity to put on the website somewhere these opportunities to get involved, because I know that there are families that would like to and just don't know.
Yeah. So hi, this is Jasmine, Metco director talking. Part of the reason why I go to community events, and I'm in the process of solidifying what the process of becoming a host family is, so that I can talk to families about it. I have given my email address out. In my email, there is actually a Metco page on the website where I have a rolling roster of families. We're trying to figure out how we engage with COVID. And so we're thinking of virtual spaces and potentially having affinity groups and mixed spaces on a regular basis. I'm planning it with the METCO PCO and some leaders in district right now. But we're trying to relook at what the host family process could look like. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Jasmine. And I know my first year on the committee, we had the METCO director at that point came and gave an update at one of our meetings. And I know Emily had, after this presentation the other day, Emily had reached out to me saying that it would be great if we could get that onto an agenda, and that either, either Jasmine could do it, or we could also invite, along with Jasmine, Millie, who had done the presentation on this call the other day, for them both to talk about, because I think there was certainly an aspect within this presentation about how communities can get more involved and really deepen their connections. So that was certainly a piece, what it seemed like, that is a real push from the METCO Inc. side, and that would be really great to move forward in our community as well.
I think that falls in line nicely with the work that Nan and I are doing with Jasmine and all the school leaders to organize school committee presentations. And so we will certainly work with METCO and Jasmine, and maybe to have some students come and present their experience as members of the METCO program.
Great.
I think that's a great idea. And I think Sarah Fox, just to kind of follow on from your comment, is not to plug this school committee website again, but adding those events, because the METCO program, not specific to Marblehead, but METCO Inc. actually has a lot of events that I think would be great. I've been to a few of them and they're amazing. So I think, if we can start to integrate METCO events also into our calendar, we can, I know that Monique and Melissa from the PCO Central Council have been working pretty closely together over the past year to again, just continue to be inclusive so that everyone's aware, not just of the METCO program, but all the great benefits that come along with it for both students, that come here and students that are in Marblehead and the entire community. We can really all benefit from some of the events and programs that they run.
I think that's a great point, that we need to get this information out, because people, I don't think, are aware that all these opportunities are here for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's another piece where, we've talked about how some of the ways in which we've broken down silos in the past. And I think this is just another one that we can continue to work to really dismantle and disperse throughout our entire community. Great. Thanks. Any other new business? Yeah.
It's not really new business, and Dr. Bucky, I don't want to put you on the spot, but given that week one is wrapping up tomorrow, any words of wisdom or things that we're looking forward to for week two as we move forward?
Yeah, I think I certainly don't want to steal my own thunder from the superintendent's weekly update, but I think
we do like those. Absolutely, yeah.
Some of the stuff we've talked about tonight, you're going to see played out in that update. A lot of good things happened this week, and I don't want to overshadow those, but there were some things this week that I think are teachable moments for the community, and in particular, an opening meeting at the high school and the conversation about equity and justice. And so I look forward to continuing those conversations. I'm very excited about welcoming our kindergartners and our first graders next week. That certainly, I have said repeatedly, starting my week at Glover and seeing the pre-K children was just such a reminder why I'm in this business. It was so heartwarming and so lovely to see the excitement of parents who are taking their children to school for the first time, and the fear and excitement of children to go into a classroom. So I would look forward to that. And, correcting some of the things that were not optimal this week will certainly be on the radar. Lots of good meetings happening, professional development, need to better align some practices across grade levels. And certainly I have heard clearly from families this week that there may be some tightening and alignment across schools and grade levels. And that was a promise that we made through teaching and learning and the reopening committees, that the experience of a child in one grade at one school will not be markedly different. And I want to remember our cohort C students, those students that are doing fully remote, that is aligned as well. And so that's part of the Wednesday afternoons that the pre-K to 6 teachers are getting together and working with each other and working with Nan and with me to make sure that there is a tightness and a cohesion and an alignment, so that when we have those transition points or pivotal points where somebody who is in fully remote wants to try hybrid, or hybrid wants to go fully remote, that there is alignment there, and it's kind of seamless, the transition between models.
Great.
Great. It is.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you, Nan. And thank you to everyone that's making it happen, and the staff. It's great to hear. So thanks for that, John.
Thank you.
John, I think that's a perfect little tee up into the correspondence that made it into our packet this week. Do you want to just give a brief synopsis on that? It's the email that you and Nan had received from a PD provider.
Yes, Nan received a beautiful email from a provider that does professional development work across the Commonwealth and probably beyond the borders of the Commonwealth. So I'll ask Nan to kind of share the positive feedback that we received from, I believe it was Seaside.
Yes. So we had Seaside consultants to come in and do 2 different sessions with our teachers. One was, both were offered K to 12. One was around raising high expectations and holding kids accountable to good practices and good teaching practices. And the other one was around co-teaching, and how do you collaborate and co-plan and co-own classrooms with multiple adults in the room and build upon each other's expertise. And we got a absolutely rave review from the president of the consultancy, saying that by far Marblehead educators were the most prepared, the most excited, the most, they had all the content that they needed well in advance to be able to access all the documents and planning materials. And she just said it was an absolute delight to be around such a positive group of adults, really ready to learn and challenge themselves, and to enter into a new year with knowing that it was going to be a challenge, but excited about bringing a fresh look at co-teaching and high expectations and inclusive practices into their practice. So she could not, she said, we won the #1 prize for all districts that she has served this year in professional development. Marblehead, in her mind, was heads and shoulders above the others. So certainly a tribute to our teachers and to the commitment in this district to make it through whatever is thrown at us. We're still going to make it work the best we can, and we're going to change and shift and pivot and still fold in new learning. So it was really nice. It was nice for John and I to get that and feel so well represented with such a prestigious organization.
So can I say something?
Yeah.
So I think we all know that we've got, an amazing staff here. It's one thing that we've said for the past few years is, that we are so fortunate to have dedicated and passionate staff. But I will say I'm so thankful for the central administration team that we have this year. We went through some challenging and dark times to get here. But it was worth it to have you, Nan, Eric, Michelle, John, that Lisa, that whole administrative central office team. Just, I hope you are also relishing in, a job very well done.
Thank you, Megan. I appreciate that. And in that correspondence, this provider had been in the district in the past, and she did comment on the change in culture and climate that she sensed across the district from her past experience here. So I appreciate you adding those comments.
Yeah, I see that as well. I see even in just the feel when you walk into Widger Road at this point, that it's a very different place, and it's light and people are enjoying being there. And I think that just speaks so highly of everyone who's there and all the work that's being done. And it makes me really excited for our district. And clearly it's very quickly, trickling down to staff as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right, that brings us to the end. I will adjourn us at 9:16.
That was a great way to end, so.
That was, definitely.
Great way to end.
I just want to note that I have the minutes almost complete. And if we want to put them up in draft and note that they're a draft, we can put them up in draft version within a day or two, because I took them as we were going.
Okay, great. I will get that motion to you as well.
Okay, can you send me any motions you have? Because I just want to check my language. And
Yes.
also what time you called the meeting to order.
Yes, 7:06.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
You.